Scientists are hopeful about a new type of COVID-19 vaccine that doesn't require a shot. That could be good news. Clinical trials are underway for a nasal spray that protects against COVID-19. A nasal vaccine developed by Blue Lake Technology was found to reduce the risk of symptomatic infection by 86% for 3 months. Vaccines administered through the nose are already a common practice for the flu. We've seen that for years. Doctors say it could be a huge step towards increasing COVID protection and fighting vaccine hesitancy. Vaccine fatigue. We have a lot of that right now. All right, here to talk more about it, we are joined by NewsNation medical contributor Dr. Dave Montgomery. Good morning to you. Great to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you, Marni.
Okay, I want to talk about the nasal vaccine first because I have a member of my family who is deathly afraid of needles. So if the option is a miss through the nose for anything other than a shot, this has to be good news. Where do you land?
Yeah, no, exactly right. I mean, for the group of people who would have otherwise taken this vaccine and helped us sort of get through the pandemic faster, but for these injections, this is going to be potentially a game changer. There are a number of these candidate sort of nasal spray vaccines in development, but this one happens to be the one that's out in human trials, and it is promising. As you mentioned, 86% effective at preventing symptomatic infection. I want to make a distinction there for the viewers because we remember the 3-shot series of the mRNA virus being 95% effective against severe disease. That is going to the hospital, ICUs, ventilators. This is a big, big step to get to what I call the Holy Grail, Marni, which is preventing the disease from taking hold altogether and preventing transmission. That's where we want to go with this.
Who's the best candidate for a nasal vaccine? Is there anybody who it might not be best for?
Yeah, I think that's being ironed out, and we'll sort of, as this gets through the different steps, right? We know that there are a number of steps in the clinical trials. We'll see who it is best fit for. As you know, things like the flu mist, which is the nasal spray for influenza, is only sort of recommended in 2 to 49, for example. In much younger than 2 and much older than 49, it's recommended again. So we'll just have to wait for that one.
Well, it's a good option at that. All right, California's Governor Newsom announced a new state branded insulin to lower prices of the life-saving medication. I'm surprised that the price has gone up triple in the last couple of decades. Why is it so high?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of different things that have happened sort of in the insulin world in terms of making it more effective, making it easier, for example, to administer. So not always do you have to go to a vial and withdraw liquid, for example, at the screenshot there. Now there are these easy, quick pens, and that technology obviously has raised the price of insulin. With that being said, what the governor of California has done is, in fact, a game changer, and I don't think it can be overstated. There are literally people who have to make a decision of whether or not to put their kids, into school or fix dinner, and whether or not to take a life-saving medicine like insulin. So this, I think, changes the game. It increases the competition, which is exactly what it will take for us to get better pricing on this.
Would you support seeing it in other states, not just in California, because for so many it is not an option?
Yeah, no, I really would. I love that he's first out the gate. He promised he would do this, right? 3 years ago, he said, I am going to get the cost of life-saving medicines, particularly like insulin, down. He's going after naloxone in the opioid pandemic next, as it turns out. With that being said, I always tell people to think about this because some people might be viewing this and say, oh, poor diabetic, right? But actually, this affects everybody. The cost of diabetes, somewhere around $330 billion. Guess what? That gets passed on to you and me, whether we have diabetes or not. Here's the other part. We're all in it together. COVID-19 showed us at the peak of the pandemic, the people who did the worst, Marni, were people who had uncontrolled diabetes. There are not people just deciding not to take it. There are people who simply can't. This changes the game for everyone here.
Yeah, a piece of good news. Many people, Dr. Montgomery, looking for alternatives to the weight loss drug Ozempic right now. We're hearing more about copycat drugs as a result. What are the risks here, your concerns?
Yeah, I'm talking to my patients and advising them through whether or not taking these agonists, we call them GLP-1 agonists, taking these are right for them. The bar is really low in terms of who should get them, right? So, the trial showed that people with a BMI of 30 or people with a BMI of 27 and an additional condition, could qualify for the GLPs just for weight loss. We're not talking about the people who really should be on them because their diabetes is uncontrolled and they say have heart disease. Those are the people we really want to have that. Because the demand is so high, even that group who is at highest risk can't get it. I'm telling my patients to really be careful and let's walk through it. Not every person with a high BMI, key piece, has a risk for the bad sides of obesity. Some people carry their weight in the lower part of the body. So different than carrying the weight in the midsection. Those people have more risk for long-term outcome and problems. If it comes to a compound pharmacy, I am specifically talking to my patients about why that is the best way to go. For some people, some of the additives in the original formulas they're allergic to, and it can harm them. And so in very, very rare cases am I recommending that they would do a compound pharmacy.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.